He broadcast went out across 14 star systems at 0300 hours, Galactic Standard Time. Emperor Kale Veyron had chosen to make it a spectacle, because that is what emperors do when they want the galaxy to stop trembling and start bowing instead. On the holographic dais at the center of the Veyron throne world, a single human child stood. She was small. Maybe 9 years old by human reckoning, pale, dark-haired, eyes wide but dry. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She simply looked up at the towering emperor with an expression his advisors would later struggle to describe. Not fear. Not confusion. Something closer to assessment. Her name was Jomi New York. And she was, by every record humanity still possessed, the last registered child born before the Veyron Compact had shut down humanity's outer colony systems. The last symbol of what the humans called their future. People of the galaxy, Emperor Kale Veyron announced, his voice deep, amplified, engineered to carry the weight of authority, humanity's era of defiance is over. Let this child be proof of what becomes of those who resist the natural order of the Compact. He expected panic. He expected riots in the human sectors. He expected Admiral Ethan Cross to break, to send the frantic emergency frequencies, the desperate pleas, the bargaining. That is what every species did. That is what you do when the Empire takes what you love most. Instead, Admiral Ethan Cross went quiet. He sat in the command chair of the HSV Unbroken, humanity's flagship, battered and scarred from 3 years of asymmetric warfare, and he looked at the broadcast feed for exactly 11 seconds. Then he turned it off. Time to target, he asked. Throne World is 9 hours out at maximum warp, his navigator, De Hai, replied. She had the flat, efficient voice of someone who had trained herself not to feel things mid-mission. But sir, if we move on the Throne World, the Compact fleet will. They'll do what they've always done, Cross said. He was already standing. They'll form up in predictable positions around the most valuable asset. Which is exactly what we need them to do. He pulled up the tactical overlay. The Empire's fleet, 600 warships, the largest military force assembled in the known galaxy, would converge on Throne World the moment humanity moved. Kale Veyron had spent decades believing that strength of numbers was the final argument. That an enemy who could not match your fleet size could not win. He had never studied what humans did when they had nothing left to lose. Wiyus, humanity's chief intelligence officer, spoke next from her station in the corner of the bridge. She was the kind of person who made the room feel smaller when she entered it, not because of her size, but because of the way information seemed to collect around her like gravity. The Compact's supply lines, she said, pushing 3 data streams to the main display. 3 choke points. We identified them 8 months ago and didn't act because we were waiting for a moment where the full fleet would be looking the other direction. She looked at Cross. They've given us that moment. The room understood. When every warship the Compact owned rushed to cluster around Throne World, the Empire's vast supply infrastructure, its fuel depots, its logistics hubs, its automated resupply corridors, would be defended by skeleton crews and automated systems. Systems that humans had spent 8 months quietly mapping. We are not going to Throne World, Cross said. We are going to everywhere else. At 0347 hours, 31 minutes after the Emperor's broadcast, 17 small human strike teams, each one fast, silent, built for precision rather than spectacle, jumped into position. They didn't fire a single shot at the Compact's warships. They hit the fuel relay at Station Veyron 9. They destroyed the automated munitions conveyors at the Croft corridor. They collapsed the data architecture that coordinated the Compact's fleet-wide targeting systems, a vulnerability that Wiyus had found buried in a firmware update 8 months prior and had said nothing about, patiently, until this exact hour. And then, most critically, they took the Veyron Compact broadcast array. Not to destroy it. To use it. At 0600 hours, Admiral Ethan Cross sat in front of a camera for the first time in the war. He looked tired. He looked like a man who had not slept properly in 3 years. He looked, the galaxy would later say, completely and utterly certain. To every species watching this broadcast, we did not ask to be your symbol. We did not ask to carry the weight of your hope or your fear. We asked only to be left alone. You saw what happened when we were not. We have taken your Emperor's broadcast array. In the next 40 minutes, his fleet will begin receiving false positioning data. His supply lines are already gone. His munitions network is dark. He has 600 warships pointed at a problem that has already solved itself. We are not here to rule you. We are here to tell you that this ends today. The child you saw on that broadcast, Jomi, New York, she is coming home. And the empire that thought taking her would break us should understand what it actually did. It reminded us what we are fighting for. He turned off the camera. Emperor Kale Veyron received the news in pieces, each one worse than the last. First, Station Veyron 9 was gone. Then, the munitions corridor was dark. Then, his fleet's targeting systems had started producing errors, cascading, compounding errors that his engineers couldn't isolate because the source had been embedded for 8 months, waiting. Then, his own broadcast array had transmitted Cross's message to every inhabited system in the compact. He stood at his throne room window and looked at the stars, and for the first time in his reign, he felt the particular, nauseating sensation of having made a catastrophic miscalculation. He had pulled humanity's future into his grip to prove that he held the power of endings. He had not understood that humans don't grieve their endings. They engineer around them. 3 hours and 14 minutes after the Emperor's broadcast, the Veyron Compact's Council of Governors sent an emergency communiqué to Admiral Ethan Cross. It used the word negotiation 17 times. It used the word surrender 0 times, but every species in the galaxy understood what it was. In a small holding room on Throne World, Jomi, New York sat on a bench, eating a piece of something vaguely fruit-like that a nervous compact guard had brought her. She had spent the last 3 hours watching the base descend into controlled panic through the room's narrow window. Officials running. Officers arguing. Screens flickering with emergency alerts. A younger guard, barely older than a soldier should be, leaned against the wall and looked at her. "Aren't you scared?" he asked. He genuinely wanted to know. Jomi, New York considered the question seriously. She looked at the chaos outside, then back at him. "My uncle is Admiral Ethan Cross," she said. And then she took another bite of the fruit thing, unbothered, and waited for the door to open. It opened 19 minutes later. The galaxy would argue for years about what exactly had broken the Veyron Compact. Some said it was the supply chain strikes. Some said it was the targeting system collapse. Some said it was the broadcast, the image of a tired human admiral saying this ends today with the particular calm of someone who has already done the work. The humans themselves never claimed credit for any single thing. They simply noted that Kale Veyron had tried to use a child to end a war. He had only succeeded in ending his empire.